Okay, Abby and Abigail, since you could not be there today for the review, I am going to try another little video just to review for you guys, catch you up for what you missed. This is all stuff we've talked about, nothing's new, but just a refresher for the test tomorrow. Hopefully you're both feeling well enough to be there. Okay, so the test, I do have some vocab on it. It's formatted a little bit differently. There you go, we'll peek at it. So I have a word bank up top, and then where you will put your answers and then the definitions beside it based on the feedback that you guys gave. I think that'll be a little more, a little easier for you guys to understand. Okay, so properties of addition and multiplication. The identity property, that means the identity of multiplication. Sorry, I'm laying in my bed while I'm doing this. Multiplication, that is saying what number can you multiply by something that would not change its value. If you multiplied anything by 1, that anything would stay the same. So the identity property of multiplication says that multiplying it by 1 does not change the value. The identity of addition says, well, what number can you add to something that won't change that something's value? You can add 0 all day long and it will not change the value. So be able to recognize these. If I had an equation that said 30 times 1 equals 30, or 30 plus 0 equals 30, be able to tell me if this is the identity property of multiplication or addition or any of these other properties. So the commutative property says you can change the order. Change the order. Let me say changing the order. Changing the order of the terms does not change the value. Does not change the value. The value of this term. So if you had 2 plus 3 plus 4 and 4 plus 2 plus 3, those would be the same thing. That changing the order, think of it, you're at the grocery store and you put the items up in any order. Doesn't matter what order the cashier rings them up in, they're going to stay the same. The commutative property of multiplication says changing the order that numbers are multiplied. 2 times 3 times 4 is the same as multiplying it as like 2 times 4 times 3. Changing the order does not change the value. Okay, for the associative property, that says changing the grouping does not change the value. Sorry, changing grouping does not change. So if you want to think of it, we'll use those same numbers. If we have 2 plus 3 plus 4, and we want to add these first, 2 plus 3, that's 5, and then add 4, that's 9. Well, that would equal the same thing as 2 plus, well, we add these two first, that's 7, and then add the 2, that's still 9. So changing the grouping of the integers or the numbers being added does not change the sum. The associative property of multiplication says that changing the grouping of the numbers as they're multiplied together, that will not change the sum, the product either. So if we had 2 times 3, that's 6, times 4, that's 24. What if we had 3 times 4, and that's 12, and then multiply that by 2, that's 24. Same thing both ways. Okay, so I have a couple where you have to write out what this would look like, write out a verbal sentence as an equation. So the difference of x and 10, difference means you're subtracting them, and what order do we go in? How do we write this down? Just the order that it reads. So the difference of x and 10 is just means equals is -8. I don't have you solve for these, so you don't have to worry about that, but I mean, it would be easy enough for you guys to do that. The quotient of b, quotient is dividing, so b divided by -4 equals -8. So a couple very similar to that. I have a couple where you tell whether the given value of the variable is a solution of the equation. So I give you an equation like this, and I give you a value. So if you see this, you plug this number in for that variable. So -4 times c, which we're told is -5. Does that equal -26? This is -4 times -5 is a +20. That does not equal -26. So you would just show me your work and then write yes or no for that. I have a couple solve the equations. So the goal is always to get the variable on one side and everything else on the other. So for this, we would move -5 to both sides. This +5 and -5 added together equals 0. So we just have r on that side. -1 minus 5 is 6, -6, excuse me. I have a couple simple basic ones like this with addition, subtraction, some multiplication. This one is a little bit trickier, but don't get thrown off. So here, first you would add these two numbers. So -2 plus 24, that would be b over 22. Equals 3. So then you could multiply both sides by 22. This would give you a 22 in the numerator and in the denominator, so those would cancel out because that's saying that it's just 1. Anything in the numerator and denominator, the same value, just means 1. So let's multiply this side by 22. B equals, that would be 66. Okay, so I have a couple word problems. If I have a jar of jelly beans that weighs 64 ounces, how many pounds of jelly beans did I eat? Because that jar would be empty when I'm done with it. So we need to know how many ounces are in a pound, 16. And this is setting up the conversion to convert the units from one thing to another. You're not changing the value of it, you're just changing the units it's measured in. So you could write it either as 1 pound over 16 ounces or 16 ounces over 1 pound. And which one you choose will depend on what you're converting it from and what you're converting it to. So if we have 64 ounces and we want to change that to pounds, we need to use the one that would have ounces in the denominator because then it would cancel out. Because remember, if we have something in the numerator and in the denominator, it cancels out. So we would use this one for converting this. So 1 pound and 16 ounces. And think of this as you're really just multiplying it by 1 because 1 pound and 16 ounces, that's the same thing. So it's just 1 over 1. So again, not changing the value, just changing the unit. So you would have these crossed out. So your answer would be 64 divided by 16 pounds, and you would just solve for that just to simplify it. Okay, so if we had 4 cans, that's a 4 right there, I don't know if you can see that. 4 cans of soup at the store we bought for $3.20. How much was each can? This is kind of just simple division. If you had $3.20 and you bought 4 cans, you would just be dividing that out. I think you guys are pretty good with that, so you know how to do that. For this, simplify the expressions. This is just combining like terms. So just to review, the numbers that don't have a variable attached, those are called constant. That's a constant. That is a good vocabulary term to know, hint, hint. And the numbers that are in front of a variable, like this 3s and that 2s, that is called a coefficient. I don't have any of those problems where I would have this and then say, tell me the terms, the like terms, the constants, the coefficients. But back on that vocab section, you'll need to know those words to be able to distinguish those. So here, anytime you're simplifying the expression, you're combining the like terms. So for this one, we have an r. We don't have anything else we can combine with r. And then we would add 23 and 16 because these are like terms. These are constants, just numbers not attached to a variable. So 3 plus 6 is 9 and 2 plus 1 is 3. So 39, r plus 39. This is not 39r like that. That means 39 times r, which would be something completely different than that. So that is not the right answer. It's r plus 39. Let's work this one out. Okay, so combining the like terms, we have some variables here, the same variables, so we can combine those. 3s plus 2s, we're just adding those coefficients, so that's a 5s plus, and then we have a 9 plus a negative 3. We can rewrite that as 9 minus 3, 5s plus 6. Again, we can't do anything more without knowing the value of s because we would have to multiply before you can add because that's what the order of operation says. You're not multiplying 6 times 5, you're adding it, but that's as simplified as you can make that one. Okay, so this one's a little bit trickier. 6r minus 9 times 3r minus 8. And with this in parentheses, we have to multiply this negative 9 by each of these terms inside the parentheses before we can do anything else. So let's just bring down the 6r. And I think the easiest way to think of this is you're combining it. Addition just means combining it. So with a negative 9 times 3r and combining that with negative 9 times negative 8. So if you're rewriting this negative sign each time with an addition sign in front of it, just think of I'm combining negative 9 times 3r and combining that with negative 9 times negative 8. That way you don't lose track of your negative signs and you'll get the right answer with whether or not they should be a positive or negative value. So 6r, negative 9 times 3 is a negative 27. And then that has an r attached to it, so negative 27r. And 9 times 8, negative 9 times negative 8, that is a positive 72. Remember, if you have an odd number of negative signs, your answer is going to be negative. If you have an even number of negative signs, your answer is going to be positive. So don't forget the plus sign there. So this one will be 6r minus 27r plus 72. Oh, but we still have like terms. Not paying attention. We can subtract these. 6 minus negative 27. This is subtracting a positive. We have a positive number and a negative number. So the way we think of these integers is we look at the one with the largest value. 27 is larger than 6. We subtract the smaller one from the larger one. 6 minus 27 is 21. And then we use the common sign of the larger one. So the larger number has a negative sign. So that's the sign that would be applied to that one. Negative 21r plus 72. Okay, and then the last thing to review, the area of a rectangle is length times width. Be able to find the area if you're given the measurements of two sides. And the perimeter of a rectangle, 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. And then area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. So let's just work this one out. If we had something with a base of 14 times a height of 6 divided by 2, 14 by 6, 14 times 6 is, yes, 24, 6, 7, 8, 84 divided by 2, and we could simplify that to be 42. So the area, and it would be units squared, that would be the area of a triangle. And then the values that I give for these, they have some like terms. They aren't the distributive property ones that you've seen on some of the ones on the homework though. So This is a really fast review of everything we talked about in class. This is the speed version. So if you have questions, feel free to call me or text me tonight, because I know you guys are kind of shortchanged since you weren't there this morning. So let me know. I want to make sure you're going in confident and ready to take this test tomorrow. So let me know if you have questions, guys. I'll hopefully see y'all tomorrow.